Hello everyone. Let's continue with Mathew Arnold's poem Sohrab and Rustum. Students, as we have seen in the opening part of the poem that the great Persian warrior Rustum has unknowingly killed his son Sohrab in a battlefield. And when Rustum comes to know about this brutal fact, this harsh reality, his heart is filled with grief and he sits beside the dead body of his son Sohrab in the battlefield, and how this pathetic scene is narrated by Mathew Arnold. Let's see. So on the bloody sand Sohrab lay dead, and the great Rustum drew his horseman's cloak over down his face and sat by his dead son, as those black granite pillars once high reared by Jamshid in Persepolis to bear. Students, before explaining this extract, I would like you people to make a note of the two words which appear in the last line of the extract which is shown on this slide. One is Jamshid and another is Persepolis. Students, Persepolis is recorded in history as an important city of Persia. It is also known as the capital of Persia. And Jamshid was the great Persian king who established or who founded this capital city, Persepolis. And Jamshid is recorded as the great grandfather of Sohrab in the history of Persia. So now let's see what the text says. Here Mathew Arnold is referring to the bloody sand of the battlefield because a fierce battle has been fought in the battlefield between Persian and Tartar armies, and so many soldiers have been killed on that very battlefield. So the sand of the field has become bloody, and on that bloody sand the dead body of Sohrab is lying over. And the great Rustum drew his horseman's cloak and just drenched in great grief, his father Rustum, he just puts off his armor. His horseman's cloak is for his armor. He was a cavalier soldier, so all the soldiers who fought on the horseback, they wear a particular cloak, and that gown or that armor is just being put off by Rustum, and he sits beside his dead son with his face down. And here the poet has just given a simile to describe this very scene, and he is comparing that the brave body of Sohrab was lying and the Rustum sat by his side as with the ruined huge pillars of granite. Look at the line 4. As those black granite pillars once high reared by Jamshid. Look here, he is comparing the dead body of Sohrab and the grief-stricken Rustum with the black granite pillars which were once high reared, which were once raised by the great king Jamshid in Persepolis. And now what is happening? And let's see the next. His house now mid their broken flights of steps. The poet is to say that Jamshid raised high granite pillars just to hold his palace years back, and now his son and his grandson and his great-great-grandson are just lying over there, just like the ruined huge pillars which are lying down over there, and the broken flights of steps are for the ruins of those very pillars. And they were now what is happening now, his great grandson Rustum is lying prostrate. Lie prone is for lying prostrate amid those very broken flights of steps of those huge monuments by the side of his bravest of brave sons Sohrab. So in the sand lay Rustum by his son. So in this way, the poet has just described the scene through a simile, and where he is comparing the dead Sohrab and the grief-stricken Rustum with the ruins of the granite pillars which were years back raised by their great-grandfather Jamshid to hold his palace. So here one thing is to be noted that this stanza is marked with epical style. Students, the description of the father Rustum, who is just filled with intense grief, has been narrated with a simile that suited the atmosphere and the background of the age in which this particular incident took place. And moreover, the reference of Jamshid is also taken from the great Persian epic Shahnama, which was written by Firdausi. And here one thing I just want to refer, that Jamshid was the son of Tamuras, who prisoned the gods, and the gods gave him the secret of hard bricks, and he got erected his palace at Persepolis with those very high pillars or those very blessed bricks, that is to say. And that very reference is just used here by Mathew Arnold as a simile. Okay, let's see what the poet says further. And night came down over the solemn west, and the two gazing hosts that sole fair. Now the sun has set, and darkness began to spread, and with the evening the fight has stopped, and it was all calmness that covered the waste of the battle. That is, the dead bodies of the soldiers were lying under the darkness of the night. And two gazing hosts. Here the poet is referring to the earth and the sky. The earth and the sky gazed at the waste lying on the field, especially the great pair of Sohrab and Rustum. The phrase sole pair is for the pair of that father and son, Rustum and Sohrab. And the two gazing hosts are the earth and the sky, because the earth and the sky are the only hosts who are gazing at the waste lying on the battlefield, and especially that sole pair of Sohrab and Rustum. So student, make a note of these two phrases, the two gazing hosts. This phrase refers to the earth and the sky, and that sole pair refers to Rustum and Sohrab. And darkened all a cold fog with night. Now what is happening? With the evening or with the night, gradually the cold fog spread all over, which crept from the river Oxus. Oxus is the name of the river which was just flowing nearby that battlefield, and darkened the atmosphere. Then out of a silence a hum rose, soon a hum arose, as of great assembly loosed, and fires began to twinkle through the fog, for now both armies moved to camp and took their meal. The Persians took it on the open sands southward, the Tartars by the river march, and Rustum and his son are left alone. So here the poet is to say that there was complete silence, and soon a hum arose. What happened? That then out of silence a humming sound arose, and it was the noise of the soldiers who were going back to their respective camps. And their hum resembled as though a great assembly had dispersed. And as they reached at their camps, they lit fire to prepare their meals, and the firelights were seen through the fogs, begin to twinkle through the fogs. It is for the fires which has been lit by those soldiers to prepare their meals. And the firelights were seen through that very fog, and the armies of both the camps had their meals, and the Persian army led by Rustum was camping on the open sands southward. And the Tartars, whose commander was Sohrab, they were on the margin of the river Oxus. Tartars by the river marge. Here it is for the marge is for the margin, edge. That the Tartars soldiers, they were on the margin of the river Oxus. And the father Rustum and his son Sohrab, dead son Sohrab, were left alone among the corpses on the battlefield. So students, in this way, this stanza portrays the tense atmosphere all around, that how the battle was fought along the river Oxus, and the two. Here one thing I would like to mention, that the expression of a great assembly loosed in the third line, it gives an impression of the pandemonium in hell, which has been described by Milton in Paradise Lost. So thus, in a very grand epic style, Mathew Arnold is describing the incident of the when Sohrab was killed by his father Rustum. That's all for today. We will continue with the closing part of the poem in our next video. Thank you.